Aha. Okay. Hi. Uh, Welcome to the Fluid Voice. As usual, we're. I always know what I'm doing. I'm here, Ozma in the dark. She, they pronouns. Am here with some wonderful people. Uh, I'm doing okay. Christy, Abbey, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I wish that there's an author I wish would leave us alone, but
We'll get
uh,
to that shortly. We're going to
I'm
start and
I'm
bring up some news.
I'm she her. I have something very specific I need to say about it, which I will then.
Yeah.
After.
Perfect. How are you?
I'm doing fine. He, him pronouns.
Okay. And
And I'm looking forward to the talk.
yeah, and our wonderful guest, scientist Mel. How are you? And out of curiosity, what degrees do you have?
Well, I'm good. She, her, they is fine too. Just don't call me bitch. I might get mad. So that's not my pronoun. so, but okay. So I have a kind of like a double major. I have an undergrad in biochemistry, one in biology. I have a master's of arts in teaching, specialized in secondary science education, and a master's of science in analytical chemistry, and I'm currently in academia on a professor track for chemistry. So
Nice.
yeah.
And we have brought. I'm my hands are going in the wrong direction for my screen. We brought Savia about that, especially with the yeah, you can tell more about that
Yes,
as well as
hi.
how you're feeling.
I'm Sophia. Both her preferred pronouns she, her, and I'm in the other side of the pond, where it's all been happening with transphobia.
Yeah, it feels like it's hit 1,000% or 1,000,000% or something. It's just been nuts. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was gonna. You want me to start because there's been a lot of
yeah,
stuff
no, we
happening.
can we
Yeah.
can start with a little bit of news, but before talking
Mm.
about the subject, just because
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it's just
well.
been nuts.
First of all, I mean, last month was I've never known a month like it for attacks against the trans community. Um, it sort of did end in a good way because Katie Hopkins and Graham Lyman both got banned from Twitter, and they've both been vocal transphobic bigots. The interesting thing about Graham Lyman is that um, he's lost his wife. He can't get any work. Um, he's been booted off Twitter, um, all because he is so fundamentally um, a transphobe. He just won't give it up. He just will not give up attacking trans people. The funny thing is, though, he went after he got booted off Twitter. He went and moaned about it on Mumsnet, and Mumsnet, of course, is the nexus for transphobic bigotry online, and they all started attacking him, which just proves that bigots attack, will eat themselves, basically. Um, as far as I'm concerned, I mean,
Well, I mean, I had my own thoughts about that. That just seems like the cult like mentality of using Graham Linehan because he can uh uh groom new potential members of the cult, and then once he's useless, then they toss him away.
Using that word is
well,
fun.
the thing is, the fact that he's lost his wife and the fact and he can't get any work, yet because of you know him spouting transphobic bigotry all the time, he won't get, and the fact that he won't give up tells me there's something wrong with him. I mean, it's like someone who's an alcoholic who's in denial. They lose everything, but they carry on drinking because you know they
That's
you
what
know
they're most
no,
familiar with.
yeah, no one has staged an intervention. Um, or successfully staged an intervention, and his life is just going down the shitter basically. You know.
Yep.
Um, I, I,
And
I, I mean, there's a part of me that thinks, well, so fucking what? Let him, But then there's a part of me that, he is a human being, and
Mm.
I don't want to see him do this. But then again, I don't want to see him attack trans people. Anyways,
well, yeah,
and
that's why I made that post recently, that I just wish he would reform. Like, wish he was capable of we're put in a position of reforming, because I think a lot of this stuff is he's being used like a disposable tool, much like the person you're about to mention.
well, before I get onto that, yesterday, unfortunately, well, Saturday now, it's Monday here now. There was series of protests by trans people and trans allies around Britain against the possibility that the Tories might be rolling back, the Tory government here, which is equivalent to the GOP in America, are possibly going to be rolling back trans rights. There have been various leaks coming out, and also Liz Truss, who is the Women's and Equality Minister, she had basically spoke. She was speaking at a parliamentary committee where she basically said that she didn't want anybody under the age of 18 to be able to undergo gender reassignment, and that she felt that there needed to be more enforcement of single sex spaces. Yeah, well, you know what that's code for. That's code for bathroom equivalent to bathroom bills in various states like North Carolina and Mississippi. The thing is, the government haven't actually made
Why
any.
is it always the bathrooms?
I know.
Because
Well,
it's a easy way to get rid of someone.
Well, the thing is that the TERFs always say, "Oh, well, if we had self-identification, or what's it called in America, Christy? Informed consent, is it?
Informed consent, yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
that depends on the state.
essentially, rapists or people who want to sexually assault women will dress up as women to get into female bathrooms. Well, this is already. There was a story I saw the other day of a rapist doing just that, and we haven't got self-identification. Rapists will rape because that's what some men odiously do, and very occasionally women. And so to say that self ID is going to help people do this is just absolute bigoted bullshit. I don't know what Liz Truss wants. Genital inspectors at the doors of public toilets. Is that what she's proposing?
I have no idea, because there's not
and-
really a good way to do that. But anyways,
And I would also add that butch, those butch lesbians who are TERFs are in for a shock as well, because there will be Karens who will start saying some butch lesbian who looks like
yeah,
could be mistaken for a guy, could be if there was a bathroom bill, could be prosecuted. They could get arrested. Sorry, not
there's
prosecuted.
plenty of that. But anyways, J.K. Rowling.
Yes,
God.
the latest transphobic bullshit. Do you want me to read what?
Well, not just transphobic, but like anti-science as well.
And also a stab at mental illness. If
Yeah.
you saw one of that, apparently it was a double-edged jab right there. Not only
Anyways,
transphobic, but mental illness.
I'll read what she said. Many, myself included, believe we are watching a new kind of conversion therapy for young gay people who are being set on a lifelong path of medicalization that many may result in the loss of their fertility or sexual function, full sexual function. This is straight out of the turf propaganda playbook. This
Yeah,
is shit I've heard
that's
years.
I skimmed a lot of that horrid book, which talks about trying to stop people from transitioning, but it essentially plays out the similar
Yeah,
type points.
Transsexual Empire, wasn't it? Janice Raymond was the author.
I don't remember the author. I maybe have. You can't prove that I've downloaded a PDF of the book because I would never pay money for it, but that may be the case. I definitely downloaded the 1990 something version, which, fuck, I had the page number for where she just flat out says that she wants to get rid of anyone transgender.
It was Janice Raymond.
Yeah.
I've heard this time and time again, but it's sort of making out that trans people are some sort of nefarious Illuminati going around brainwashing people into being trans.
Especially us autistics. We are definitely the criminals, according to the screed at least.
I'll tell you one person who's propagating this bullshit. I don't know if you're aware, on YouTube there's a channel called the Transition Radio Show. I forgot the guy's I don't know what they're identifying as now, but I think their name was Martin or Mark. I know that they were an occupational therapist in Florida and they got blacklisted. Essentially, they basically, from what I know of them, they were up for some big award in the trans community and they didn't get it. And then all of a sudden they turned against the trans community. And they started making videos with Kathy Newman, who's one of the most vile of vile TERFs. You know, somebody I would always say to anybody, do not engage with at all.
Oh, too late.
And this person was, as I said, female to male trans, and they were saying, "Oh no, I've made a mistake. I'm actually a butch lesbian." Well, all right, fine. You've made a, you feel you regret transitioning, fine, but it doesn't mean everyone else regrets transitioning. You know, the amount of trans people who regret transitioning is less than 2% of the of all trans people.
Well, it's better than if you take into account the number of people who then regret the regret, basically, who go, I was right the first time, I want to transition, and go back to transitioning.
Right.
Yeah.
You get down below 1%.
Yeah.
It's 0.05% total, and I mean, I transitioned when I was very young, and I gave it up for safety, really.
Well, the first time I tried to transition, it was because of, in those days, the trans community was dominated by true scummers. It was very much the mantra was, you must do everything you could do to pass as a woman, and then after you had surgery, you must bunker down and live in stealth. And I was actually one of the first trans people to say, no, that's not the way I want it to be. I think we should be proud to be trans. And no one's going to be educated if we all live in fucking secret, are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, obviously, like, some people are too afraid. But that's a different circumstance.
I mean, rightly so. I think I actually had a conversation with somebody stateside. She was a psychologist. Her main practice was working with racism related trauma, as well as LGBTQ Black individuals, including Black trans individuals. And she feels the most marginalized group are disabled Black trans individuals. And there's a high risk for mental health issues, including suicide. And so she's
also the higher risk of getting murdered.
Right. Getting murdered, raped, assaulted. all of those things. So anybody who's like, I'm so worried a trans person's going to kill me. No, the trans person is more afraid that you're going to kill them. It's we're more afraid of you.
We're
more
afraid of you than you are of us.
Well,
I mean, yeah.
I always say, what is the threat of why are we such a threat? Yeah, the only thing I can think about, and some people said this is bullshit, is that a lot of people are very repressed and they don't like it, right? So they think that everyone else should have to be made to be repressed, right? And trans people have the courage to be themselves, and they don't like that. They don't like the fact that we say no, we're going to be ourselves.
I think, and I'll just put it out there. I'll be quite frank. Who would be the ones that would be committing the murder most likely? Dudes, right? Cis white guys, whatever, sometimes black, whatever, cis dudes, let's just say that, cis guys that are straight, they're attracted to a trans person, they find out that that they're trans. Now it requires them to have to kind of question themselves. I've always felt, being a woman, people, cis dudes, are homophobic and transphobic because they're afraid they will be treated the way they treat women.
I think
they don't want to be overcome by a trans woman and be like, oh, well, they're actually a guy. Now all of a sudden I am gay. And then they have to kind of deal with that because there's a stigma. And then also the fact that they don't want to be objectified by another person that they would perceive as being a male. So
yeah, I mean, it also doesn't help that the trans panic laws are still in place amongst far too much of the United States.
I'd also, I mean, I always remember when I used to use male toilets. I mean, you did not look at anyone else. You went up to the urinals. Don't look at anyone else. They'll think you're looking at their penis. They'll think you're gay. There was always that sort of, fear, wasn't there? Most men are probably bisexual, and
I have no idea about enough to make that statement in any sort of grand term.
Well, yeah, it is about the gay thing, but I think that guys, what they complain about is they go, I'm trapped, because if I treat this person as if they are a man, I'm a bigot. And if I treat this person as if they are a woman, I'm gay.
That's so weird and convoluted.
But but in the mind of a person who has not had that discussion with themselves, that makes sense,
Yeah,
it's a convoluted little logic, but you go, that's broken.
It's broken.
But the problem, that's really where the problem is. That's what they're saying.
That makes sense to a degree for a person who's not comfortable enough to explore all of that without thinking, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I'm not really a man. Because then you could go down the whole route of toxic masculinity with that stuff.
Well, and negative sexual identity, you identify not your sexual identity, but what you are not.
Yeah.
And so on.
There's no real self-reflection there for growth from those individuals.
Yeah.
Can I put on? Can I throw? I know this is going to sound to lighten it, or not lighten it, I suppose. I did something today I never thought I'd catch myself doing, which was watching an episode of the Babysitters Club.
I won't judge you.
And I was specifically told to watch episode 4, and which is about one of the babysitters having to deal with that. She's babysitting a trans girl, and they did it very well, and she told off the doctors when she had to take the kid to the hospital, and that's fine. But I got all weepy because because I'm me, and because it was the trans girl was played by Kai Shipley, who was the person whose family was attacked, who their house was burnt down, and and when I was so fearful just before coming out, Kai Shipley was one of the people. I saw a thing on her, and I'm like, if this little girl can do it, this is one of the things I can do. So it was really a huge deal for me, and I had no idea that that's who they had to
Well,
have it on.
I do.
And I think it's a good thing that this was a good thing.
Just a couple of other things.
Well, I wanted to get to biology.
That didn't matter, I guess.
Yeah. I was gonna, but I told you I was gonna mention Emma Nicholson.
Yeah, and her. I mean, the person who's a big founder of the anti-gay marriage bills, who gets supported as if she's an ally to lesbian people, and especially what.
Well, anyway, so yeah, I was gonna mention a couple of other things. Talking about media, I hope everyone's checked out Disclosure on Netflix. It's actually
yes,
it's amazing.
It's quite an important documentary because for the first time ever, it's trans people talking about trans stuff. I've seen so many fucking documentaries where you get trans people talking about stuff, but then they have to have like a psychiatrist there. It's like, what, you can't believe that trans people, you know what trans people say. You have to have some sort of expert there to validate, but they're not actually that crazy. Anyways, I was going to talk about Emma Nicholson, or Baroness Nicholson. She sits in the House of Lords. I met her many years ago. To explain, she was a Tory MP, right? But then she crossed crossed the House and became a Liberal Democrat. Anyways, a couple of years after this, she was standing to be a European Member of Parliament. And she came around this area to campaign. And I was asked with my friend Owen to go and take some photographs of her campaigning. And because I knew the local Liberal Democrat party bigwig here. And, they knew I had a good camera. I guess it was cheaper to give me a free meal than hire a photographer. Anyways, how I wish I didn't have that meal, because I sat down. First of all, the food was shit. And secondly, Emma Nicholson asked me what I did for a living. And I said I was on disability. And she went, well, you don't look that disabled. And started to give me a hard time about being disabled. I mean, she's actually deaf. So, she seems to think, she's probably one of those people who seems to think, well, if I'm capable of doing stuff, then everyone else is capable of doing stuff, not realizing that she's probably had somewhat of a privileged upbringing, compared to some of us, right? Mm-hmm. So she never convinced me of being a Liberal Democrat. She was always a Tory. So I was not surprised when she went back to being a Tory. She just gave me a hard time for being disabled. So anyways, we fast forward 20 years later, and of course she's now attacking charities like Mermaids who help trans kids. It's always mermaids. They always attack that one charity. Lyman was doing the same thing. But they're trying to convert kids to being trans. No, that's absolute bullshit. Yeah, I know Susie Green, who runs Mermaids. That is nothing what they do.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, we were all trans kids. Yeah.
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 And my upbringing was completely and utterly horrible, because nobody would take it seriously when I said I am a woman. In fact, I remember the very first time I ever told a social worker, they laughed at me. I was 11 years old. How do you think that made me feel? Huh?
Well, like shit.
I hated puberty. I hated male puberty. Huh?
Yeah.
I kept, I kept thinking, I hated myself. I absolutely hated myself.
Yeah.
And if I had had an intervention, as kids now have, I think I wouldn't be as fucked up as I am now.
Luckily, I have nice parents who accept me, so that's why I am at least passable for not being fucked up. But is it okay for us to get to biology?
Of course, sorry, I just thought I should mention that.
Yeah.
And the babysitter club story was cool. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just was. It was because I wanted to say something nice.
It's fine. To some degree, I honestly just wanted to rant because I never get to talk about biology. I'm sorry. There's very few people who have like scientific expertise, and I'm just like sitting here and I got up to molecular biology. I did some gene transformation. That was the most complicated thing I did in getting the associates, which is not nothing, although it's not like anywhere near as advanced as I'm sure anything you've done.
Okay.
And it's just like, where to begin? Everything about science is important, and science is a good way to describe things, and sometimes people use it and act like science tells you what political belief to have, which isn't the case. I mean, although oftentimes facts go left. But
they can. You can try really hard to make a thing be what you want it to be, but it doesn't always work that way. Anti-vaxxers are a perfect example. They funded a study to prove that vaccines cause autism, and it didn't. Their study didn't.
That's been disproved.
Exactly. But
yeah,
they really, really want it to be true, but the facts don't back it up. And then
and it's also a good reason not to vote for the Green Party, because I don't know if you remember Jill Stein got an absolute twist about that.
Well, yes, yes, and also not wanting us autistic people. That's its own problem.
Yeah, that is its own problem. It's people on the spectrum they're wired a bit differently. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. We need people with different minds on the planet in order to solve the problems we have. I mean, different perspectives are wonderful.
Well, yeah, I'm autistic, right? I have real problems with personal interactions, right? Mm-hmm. I've had really bad personal relations with people, and I'm very hard to get on with sometimes. But take me to a casino, and I will win you your money back, and then some.
I'm also on the autistic spectrum. I'm just different because it's a spectrum, and there's different symptoms, different things. I'm better at social stuff than I like to admit sometimes. But yeah, and in terms of there's so many scientific things. There's so much science. There's so many biological things that annoy me, especially because I really hate when things get broken down into basic sex. Because like
gender and biological sex and all that stuff, and
gender has nothing to do with science, because biological sex is all that has to do with science, and even biological sex in term is a great generalization for populations of species, but like it's not very helpful for individuals, because then it's just like, hey, a lot of the stuff that is involved with your body, it's essentially epigenetic factors of hormones,
right?
That's like a lot of it, and mm-hmm. also the fact that I was born with the typical male chromosome, so I have the thing that prevents I have the anti-Müllerian duct hormone producing gene, and I don't know, there might be something for the creation of testes, but that's like about it when it comes to genetics. There's very little difference between
exactly
the average person.
That's the thing.
Well, what TERFs want, right, and is biological absolutism, right? So if you're born with a penis, you're a guy. If you're born with a vagina, you're a woman. Well, I've
Yeah,
got
that's not how any of that works.
well,
Yeah.
I was about to say, what's between your legs won't work unless it's in line with what's between your ears.
I mean,
And there are people like me who are XX who
Yeah, exactly.
they don't even believe exist.
Well,
So-
Jermaine Greer actually did say nice things about intersex. Has said supportive things about intersex, but she's about the only turf I know who has.
Yeah, most of them usually start declaring that intersex is malformed, true men and women. It's usually the sort of argument that they go to.
I'm surprised.
But I'm still not a woman to them, so it doesn't matter so far.
I mean, it's they want to talk in absolutes, but that's not what we see in nature at all. We don't see 100% absolutes in anything.
Well,
not in any of it.
I was about to say, I don't know if I was born intersex or not, but what I do remember is when I started taking Ishdal, my brain felt relieved.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just
yeah.
relieved,
Same.
And if I wasn't trans, right? Because there was a psychiatrist here called Russell Reed, right? And his methodology was to put, I don't know what it was with female to males, but I know with male to female trans women, he would put them on hormones quite early on, right? Which went against the psychiatric consensus at the time. But basically the idea was if that person doesn't take well to hormones, right, then they're not gender dysphoric. They're not as gender dysphoric. They're essentially a cross-dresser, right? Because if their sexual libido is oppressed, then they're not going to like that. I don't know if that's true or not, to be honest.
There may be studies that you can find associated with that. That's where I would start, is looking at that.
The problem. I'll get to that.
That was his diagnostic tool, right? And it did get him into trouble because there was one case of somebody who did regret having gone through gender reassignment and sued him, or tried to, because they had money. We all defended him. As I said, personally, when I started taking hormones, I just felt relieved. I felt happy for the first time in a long time in my life. And
I mean, that might have been something that worked with you,
Yeah.
It's hard to know population wise, but at least that was something that was effective for you, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And there is a reverse. There's a reverse dysphoria. If someone starts taking the hormones and it isn't right for them, they can develop the same symptoms of dysphoria.
Mm.
Well, there was.
I mean, with a lot of this thing, because I did want to talk. With a lot of this stuff, it comes down to sometimes people get far too much a stickler for the terminology, because gender dysphoria and gender euphoria, which I've heard talked about, both talked about to a great extent, are symptoms but not signs. So people are describing what they need for them to receive help. I mean, that's how a lot of stuff gets diagnosed when you're dealing with trying to provide any sort of medical benefit. Like, you can't, there's usually not a sign for a headache. You have headaches.
I didn't feel euphoria when I was first on Ichadol, but I did feel euphoria when I started on anti-androgens, testosterone blockers.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's all. It's people have their own personal experiences,
But I
And-
remember talking to a
Yeah.
turf. I remember talking to a turf about this. I said, "Look, I wouldn't be,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be a woman if I didn't take so well to these drugs."
well, I mean,
Right.
yeah, but anyways,
And no. What I was trying to point out is that I was trying to disprove with all their bullshit. And I said, with my personal experience, I said, "Look, I wouldn't be the woman I am if, if I was male, I would miss testosterone. I would, basically miss getting it up. Well, I don't, and
yeah.
she just they just wouldn't accept this.
Yeah, that's more. It's harder to explain.
Yeah. So when it comes to the biology of a lot of the things, I think some of the important things, because a lot of the times with arguments, you start getting into basic biology used to how should I put this? Basic biology to dismiss whatever you want, because basic biology is generalizations. It's not like
When we're talking about like middle school level, biology
Yeah.
versus what the general scientific consensus is two completely different things.
As long
Yeah.
as I don't have to dissect a frog, I'm okay.
I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I mean, that's more an anatomy class. I remember dissecting
Yeah.
a
But can I
frog
have
in
fun-
anatomy class. It was actually like a
but-
pretty good experience.
But can I have fun with the Bunsen burner?
No, that's more chemistry.
Yeah, that's
sorry,
more chemistry. Let Mel speak a little bit.
it's okay.
Please.
Sorry.
The thing is that the sciences don't actually support the side of the argument that wants there to be sharp declinations and assignments,
Right.
immutable assignments, and the science doesn't actually support that side. But I always try and point out, even if it did, it wouldn't settle the issue for people.
No.
It just
Yeah.
wouldn't. And for either side, if science came out and you had an 85% consensus amongst all the biological sciences that there were 7 or 13 or whatever number of genders you would like, this wouldn't settle the issue for the side that wants to say there's men and women and you have to go into these bathrooms.
Well,
Right.
And it wouldn't, and it would absolutely would not settle the issue for them. And if science came out and was 85% similarly and said there are just 2 sexes, people would go, yeah, well, big news, who cares? Because that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good.
So it's an important thing to understand what it does and
Jeez.
doesn't support. The biology it supports, but I don't think it settles the issue.
There's a good comparison to make with climate science. I mean, 98% of climatologists say, climate change is happening, right? But there's still a whole lot of climate change skepticism, isn't there?
They're flat earthers.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, so my background, I used to teach high school biology in the Bible Belt. So and
Okay.
evolution
bless
was
you.
on the docket.
It's
So that
only a
was
theory.
fun.
It's only a theory. It's only a theory.
It's only a theory. So having dealt with people that have, and this is being polite, a cultural resistance to evolution.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
That's the polite way of saying that. But I grew up out in this area and I taught public school for about 5 years. I'm now back at, post-secondary academia, working in chemistry and stuff. But I used to teach biology, physical science, and chemistry in the high school level. A lot of what you're dealing with when you're dealing with people who absolutely deny science, it's because their core values conflict with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at like out here in the churches, the devil planted the fossils, that's why evolution's wrong. Evolution is, it's a conspiracy by scientists to get rid of religion. I've heard all kinds of things. So what you have to do when dealing with people like this, what I found was the most effective is just freaking address the elephant in the room and go, you don't have to believe this. I just want to make certain you understand what the science is. That's it. You can You have fantastic brains. I'm not going to tell you what to think. You've been told what to think your whole life. You can come up with your own conclusions and make up your own mind. I just want to make certain you understand what science is. So you completely remove the emotional aspect of, I'm going to make you believe what I believe. And it's because, to be quite frank, these people are brought up thinking that this and anything outside of what they think is evil and wrong, they're going to burn in hell. It's been preached at them to a point to where they think, if I don't believe this, this is going to harm me. And so they're taught this from such a young level. Like, if you don't touch the stove because it's hot, it's that kind of level that starts really, really young. And so when they are introduced and they're given completely logical, all kinds of evidence, like, this makes so much sense. Now they have to deal with the cognitive dissonance. They have to deal with, somebody's lied to me. Is it the nice lady who said she's not going to make me believe this? Or is it my family who's in my church, who's brought me up to think that everything that this nice lady would say would make me burn in hell?
And one
Yeah.
of the funniest things, just because of the science, the theology doesn't agree with them either.
No. So it's like, but that's all up for interpretation. So having to navigate that and deal with the fact that these kids, they were teenagers, anywhere 16 to 18 or whatever, sitting there, have been told by their parents all this stuff, have been told. And, you know, I was very adamant about diversity, the importance of diversity in nature, talked about all kinds of, you know, different genders, all this stuff. We could have the conversations as long as they understood, I'm not going to make you believe this. You don't, that's not my job. But then when you remove that argument, completely remove it out of the conversation, and they see the evidence, now they have to deal with the pain that they've been lied to. They're either being lied to by me, and I'm not going to fight with them, or they've been lied to by their family and everybody else. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Amanda Glaze. She's known as Evo PhD on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Her whole job is researching, and she's a Christian. She is very religious. She is an evolutionist also. Her whole job is bridging that gap, trying to get people of faith to accept evolution. But one thing that she and I both agree on is that, as horrible as it sounds, with all these bigoted people, and all these people are just like, no, we can't have trans people. We can't have multiple genders. This is just wrong. We're going to die and burn in hell. Whenever they're presented with the evidence, and it's right there. It makes sense. It's straightforward. There's no, hey, you've been lied to. You've been lied to. And this is painful for you. And I understand that this is your reaction for being lied to all these years. I'm very sorry. Yeah. And the thing is that's not trans people's responsibility to offer aftercare to individuals for education. Okay. That's not trans. It's just like, that's not trans people's responsibility to say, hey, you've been lied to, you know, you're hurting right now. You've been really, no, that's not, it's other people's job. It's people in the scientific community. It's activists to sit there and say, hey, you've been lied to and this is painful, and I get that. But there's nothing there to help that person understand that, you know, their core values have completely been destroyed with if they're rational enough to look at the evidence, they'll either shut down completely and push it away because it hurts too much, or they'll look at it and it'll wreck them. I've seen this happen with kids in my class. One of the smartest girls I've ever seen, heavy fundamentalist, fought me tooth and nail on evolution. She's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to turn my head. Okay, well, you know what? That's all right. I just want to make certain you understand what these terms are. It's okay. Saw the evidence, and you could see within her the struggle. She was just like, she was smart. This makes sense, but this hurts me, because now she has to sort. I have been lied to my entire life. She came back from my biology 2 class. Super freaking smart girl. And I hope she gets it eventually, but there's nothing there And like I said, it's not the trans community's responsibility to offer any kind of aftercare, and we shouldn't have to do that. But that's the reality of the thing. People are given this evidence and it conflicts with what their core values are, and it causes them pain. And they're like, I can't have this. This isn't what I was brought up to believe. And and they're shook. And you're like, go to a therapist. It's like,
Can I ask you? What you sound like you're from Georgia?
No, I'm not from Georgia.
The Tennessee accent.
Oh, it's a Tennessee. Near. Anyways, Tennessee's not one of those states where you have to teach creation science along with evolution, is it?
I know Tennessee passed a bill saying that it was legal, that you could do that, but with Tennessee, it's not part of their end of course exams. You will not see creationism on the end of course exams.
Can I just ask a few questions? Because I'm interested in this.
Sure.
First of all, you were teaching kids mostly who are Southern Baptists, I would imagine.
Baptist, Nazarene, Lutheran, Catholic.
Now the Catholic, that's interesting because the Catholic Church does acknowledge evolution.
They do. I also taught atheist children. Those are few and far between.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, I don't know when I was. Well, let's see here. I was an atheist at like sometime in my teenage years. I was definitely around that mentality. But anyway, go on. Your question.
I was going to say, the thing I would always say to people is say, I think isn't it Alabama? They're it's one of the southern states that only allowed to teach evolution as a theory. I think it might be Alabama.
I think it's probably in Alabama where they had to change. They actually changed the way that the particular indicators are written, because each state has their own state indicators on how they feel a student has mastered a particular subject. And so they've changed the wording to where, according to the theory of evolution, they'll put things in there to make it sound like it's, it's not fact, but it just shows a gross misunderstanding of what a theory is.
Yeah.
Well, my answer to anyone who says evolution is a theory, I go, well, gravity's a theory. Why don't you jump off? Why don't you jump off a 10-story building? See if you can fly. Yeah, I mean, it's only gravity's only a theory.
I did thought experiments with my student. I don't know how I had a job for 5 years. I did thought experiments with my students. Like, what? We can test the theory of gravity and evolution at the same time. We can take you all up to the top of the school building and you jump off of it. And those of you who are smart enough to like grab onto a limb or land in a bush and not die, you get to pass your genes on to your kids. So, that's, you made it. So, that's gravity and natural selection. Natural selection chose for you, not against you. You landed in a bush and you didn't die. Or I used like the zombie apocalypse. That was always fun. And then I would ask my students, which one of you runs? Do y'all run? I'm like, okay, well, I'm pretty certain I can't outrun you. All I got to do, I just got to outrun the zombies, So it's like, I could like run and then I could trip you. And then my strategy genes get to be passed on to my kids while the zombies have you for dinner. And they're like, you trip me. Like, I'd put a bell on your neck. Don't think you're special. So it's like, the kids in my class are like, oh my God, like, yeah, you put a bell on your neck, have you running, man, it's great. Then I don't get eaten.
What also makes me chuckle, right, is that when fundamentalist Christians want to sort of back up their arguments that homosexuality is bad, sometimes they will try and find a scientific paper to back their argument up.
Yeah.
Always makes me laugh. Oh, so you're against science? You're against science when it doesn't agree with your conclusions.
That's all the time for me.
But when it does agree with your conclusions, oh, you're all for it. Well, that's weird, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
Confirmation bias.
well, I mean, a lot of this comes down to, well,
Yes,
say a lot
and the famous study from 1857.
oh God. Yeah, no. I have this major problem whenever people start talking about stuff in like a social Darwinist type context, where they're talking about the benefits of surviving. But like, honestly, diversity is the most beneficial thing for humanity's survival, because we don't know everything that could happen. It could be a virus that wipes out everyone but this gene that also affects autism. Like, so only autistic people could survive this virus pandemic. Like, we don't know. Anything could happen. Right. And when it comes to
I survived it. Is that an anecdote or data?
I believe that's an anecdote. We need to have enough people studied. I don't know what the my statistics is weak enough that I don't know exactly how many people we need to ask. Gotta be at least 100. I want to say.
And I'm thinking everyone who dies from the Trump rallies, therefore was not gay, but everybody who survived is in fact some form of LGBTQ.
They're all gay. They're all gay.
Because that's the gene.
That's it.
That's it.
Well,
you have the gay gene.
Well, I mean, it's the coming apocalypse.
Certain animals.
So that's what it was. Instead of people getting sucked up into heaven with the light, it was a pandemic instead. So
that's right.
Have any of you ever seen the Mike Judge film Idiocracy?
Yeah.
I haven't yet. I need to. I liked his Office Space. I relate to that so much.
Yeah, I remember that. The classic watering their plants with
Gatorade.
Was it Gatorade?
Oh
I thought it was their made up drink.
No, I'll tell you the story. Basically, sort of like an average sort of soldier. He's very average, right? He gets cryologically frozen for 500 years, and he wakes up and he finds out that he's the smartest person on the planet.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
But inheritability doesn't work that way either, which
if you're trying to get into here's the thing. The science is almost never correct on any movie out there. Like, every movie that involves science, like, once you know a little bit of science, like, every alien movie, for one, nobody removes their gloves properly. Nobody. In any of the alien movies. Aliens, like, the scientific, the sciencey robot doesn't even wear gloves, which is just going to contaminate everyone else.
Don't even get me started on Prometheus. I was like screaming so mad.
Well, that's the thing. I let that go because I know the movie that got the closest to scientifically right was Alien, and the acidic blood makes no sense.
No.
But maybe if it's silicone.
Alien's a great film. Aliens is a great film.
Well,
and I would also
Aliens
speak
is a bit outdated.
Aliens, no.
I don't feel like it holds up as well.
The Martian's pretty close on the science. They get a few things wrong.
I'll tell you which is probably one of the most accurate scientific films, and it's very relevant. It's not Steven Soderbergh's best film, but it's Contagion.
Contagion's pretty good.
It is fairly, obviously, the thing is with films, you have to take some dramatic license, but it is actually pretty accurate as to what is happening.
Yeah.
It's just on a far worse scale.
At least they fixed where the stars actually were on Titanic. I thought that was useful.
Oh! I'll tell you. I have to tell you.
I don't know about.
I was
trying to get I'm hoping Sharknado is scientifically accurate. I'd really like a Sharknado right now.
I was trying to.
You're talking.
Ease out. I'm getting no weight. I'm not able to ease out of these conversations. I'm not entirely sure why.
Your guest, your guest is saying it doesn't matter sometimes what you say to people who believe in stuff. They'll still believe in it. Well, I'll tell you
Oh,
a story
sure.
about Titanic, right? When
Yeah.
right, so there was a guy I used to know called Clive, right? And he refused to believe. He saw the film Titanic. He said, "Oh, I feel it's really good," but he said the boat didn't split in two. Well,
Oh dear.
well,
He's wrong.
well, he was a bit he was a bit thick, and I tried to explain basic physics to him. That it would split into two because of the weight of water.
Sheer weight of the boat.
Yeah. He just refused to believe that it split in two. He says, "I've got books, what fucking book?"
Yes, and I'm sure jet fuel can't melt girders, but
Oh yeah.
don't actually listen to people like that much if we can help it.
So I forgot what your guest's name is. Sorry, I forgot what your name is.
I'm known as Scientist Mel on the things.
Have you ever had the Bill Hicks gag that Christians who believe in creationism always look really unevolved?
I think I have heard that.
Although
I'm familiar with the Bill Hicks.
Although, like, immediately my instinct is just like, I've got a problem with that, because obviously there's various things that get associated with Neanderthal things, and Neanderthals were smart. They were smarter than most humans, and the fact that there was interbreeding between the species to create Homo sapiens as they are currently, it's just like, you can't. It's not so simple. Plus there
were a few things working against Neanderthal. One, they didn't put rocks around their fire, which was just a huge technological advantage.
Yeah,
they weren't capable of strategy.
They lived in much smaller familial groups. We invented the atlatl and came out with that, meaning we were hunting things at range, which is much safer.
The what?
A stick for throwing a spear with.
Oh, okay.
Why did
I forget about that?
And that gave us a huge technological advantage. And then there was the fact that we have sincere evidence that we were using the Neanderthals as a resource.
Yeah.
That we were, for instance, hunting and eating their children and making jewelry out of their teeth.
Oh, jeez.
As one does.
As you do. But they did that in the Bible, so it's okay, guys. It's okay. They raised villages and sacrificed babies. It's all right.
No. We evolved when the first ape touched the obelisk.
Those two guys went to the International Space Station. We all have time to go get gorilla suits and learn how to ride horses when they come back.
No. Do you know what that?
Nice.
Do you know what that was?
Sorry. That was a nice Planet of the Apes.
No, that wasn't a reference to Planet of the Apes. It's a reference
what she just did was.
Yeah, once
they come back, we just pretend that Planet of the Apes happened.
The reference to the obelisk is
2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, she was playing off of you. It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We're playing
two different.
volleyball.
It was references to two different films, starting with 2001: Space Odyssey, reminding Mel of Planet of the Apes because of intelligent apes.
Dirty apes.
And the last word Dave actually said was Rosebud.
Actually, Planet of the Apes is interesting because I have watched it in recent years. And
which one though?
The first one,
the real one.
Okay, the original with
not
Charlton Heston.
Yeah, not the Tim Burton remake. That's the one. I love Tim Burton, but that's the one film I will not. The Tim Burton film I will not watch.
It's rough.
It is, but no, the original. It's interesting you bring that up because how it questioned religious dogma in that. Because you remember that all the apes were saying, "Oh, humans can't talk and whatever else." This goes against the word of teachings of whoever. Yeah. And I was.
Yes.
I was like, I hadn't seen it for many years, and I was amazed. I'd seen it when I was a kid, and I thought, considering Charlton Heston's, well, I know he was a Democrat back then, but considering what happened with Heston, I thought it was an interesting, thing about this was actually quite an anti-religious film in some ways.
Yeah. So we accept Collins, which I will definitely screen so we don't have a we don't have another instant like that one time. But we're still really small, so people rarely want to call in. I was just mentioning that since it's the second half. But yeah,
I was also going to ask Mel.
And apparently, if they do call in, they might want to overshare.
Yeah,
that troll. Whatever.
Mel, I was going to ask you. I don't know if any of you know this, but when the COVID-19 outbreak hit the United States, there was a problem with Congress that they'd got rid of all their scientific advisors.
Oh yeah, that happened 2019. That wasn't this year. That was like,
well, that's when they got rid of it, but they had all because they had gotten rid of it, like they once they found out about COVID, it was just a mess. This because of 2019. Sorry,
I'm not saying people shouldn't believe in God. If that brings them comfort, fine. But shouldn't block out fucking science.
Well, Donald Trump fired the pandemic response team.
Yeah,
He broke. There were 39 locations that they had. The pandemic response was responsible for, including stockpiles of masks, and testing kits, and so on. All those sorts of things were part of their department. He shut down all of 20 of them.
Oh, 20 of them? I thought he shut down all of them.
No, it's just 20.
Just 20.
Just 20 out of what do you say, 30?
39?
39?
I think it was 39.
Yeah, so about half.
Yeah.
About half.
And he got rid of the actual committee as well, right? He fired the committee.
29. Yeah, and he fired the committee.
Just recently,
canceled it. And
he's just like, we don't need you guys.
Departments and so on.
Peace out. And then he kicked him out. It's weird. Speaking of COVID-19, a very dear friend of mine who's been on my channel multiple times, Doc Savage, he appears, we used to do a show together for a while. But with the pandemic and lots of other things and his job, he's been snowed under. He actually helped develop vaccines, one of them being HPV. And he works in immunotherapies, and he's worked in pandemic response. The Gates Foundation called him recently. He's been in constant contact with me because he lives out in the Netherlands and I'm in the US, and I'm like his friend and stuff. And he's like, please don't go anywhere. Stay home. He's like, early on when this hit, he's like, they need to shut down every city and make people stay home because it's going to get bad. So in February-ish, he's like, this is going to be bad. His numbers have been, at least 1 million people are going to die from this by the time this is over, minimum. That's the lowest amount is 1 million people. And he's had conversations with me, and he goes, do you know how many bodies can fit in a football field? I do. And that's where you're going to be soon if the hospitals are overwhelmed. So
I'm already hearing stories of hospitals reaching capacity.
That's the thing is, the people argue, they argue it only has a 2% mortality rate, which is not a bad figure. That
2%
we'll just run with
of
that.
the millions
and you
of
go,
people.
Yeah. And then you say, and if we, we might go up to 4% and so on, possibly even 6 if we let it overwhelm the infrastructure, the medical infrastructure. And then if you just remind people that we're talking about in America, more than 300 million people, you're talking about more than 70% of the people getting it. You're talking about every one of those percents that you're talking is 1 million people.
Yeah. It's
percent
going
mortality,
to be a minimum
you're
of 1
expecting
million
2 million dead. You're saying, what would it hurt to throw another 2 million on the Barbie? Okay.
Well, here's the other problem.
We can afford to go to 6% if it means opening the economy early.
Ah,
What kind of
no.
crazy talk is this? You're talking
it's-
about millions of people dead.
Yeah, but
The way I put it in the first place is, okay, redheads are 2% of the population. Now imagine every redhead you've ever met, they're dead.
well,
And
you
how
know,
how many redheads has that been?
Well,
And,
that'd just be a criminal loss.
well, that'd be well.
well, it would. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
we wouldn't see Mel.
wouldn't see Mel, wouldn't see me.
I mean,
Hey,
yeah,
me,
yeah.
I'm important.
I'm keeping
Yeah.
my butt at home as much as possible, so I'm I'm reducing my risk. But the thing that people, these people who don't wear masks, they're like, oh, I'm healthy, I'll get it and I'll be fine. Well, they're not thinking the long game here.
Yeah.
So let's say all the ICU beds are full of COVID-19 people and your ass gets in a car wreck. You're going to be sitting in the freaking hallway on a cot waiting for a room because all the beds are full. What are you going to do? Your kid's dying, you're dying. Insurance rates are going to go up on car accidents because you're going to have a higher mortality rate because people are not going to be able to get treated for their injuries. You're going to have a higher rate on your premiums for health insurance because the healthcare system's overwhelmed. It's going to hit people in the pocketbook and it will affect them indirectly in that regard. What happens if you have a heart attack? The paramedics will come and they'll help you, and then you're going to sit in a cot in the hallway waiting on a room. So they're not thinking this. This isn't inside the realm of the possibility of the brain of these people. You're more likely to get in a car accident than contracting COVID-19. But if everybody's in the freaking hospital from COVID-19, who's going to treat you in your car accident?
Well, Mel, you missed out on when we had Aria on the show.
Oh no. On to that. No.
So Aria, I'll explain to Mel. Aria's a libertarian, right, and anarcho-capitalist, right? And we had this hour-long conversation where we were trying to convince her that it would be probably best if she wore a face mask. And, no. She believed in social Darwinism, and people are going to die. Well, let them. They're going to die. That sort of argument.
Yeah. See that's
that it's the thing is that it's not about you, and it's one of those things. I thought of a good parallel for it. If you don't want to get a vaccination for tetanus, I think that's a stupid decision, but it's your choice, because I'm not going to get tetanus from you. No one's getting tetanus from you. It's not communicable that way. So if you don't want a vaccination, okay, you're an adult. Fine.
For tetanus. Specifically for tetanus.
But if you don't want a vaccination for measles,
I've
got some objections. You can be killing people. That's dangerous behavior towards others. If you don't want to wear a mask for your safety, I'm cool with that. But it's not about your safety. It's about the safety of others.
And they
won't. Not wearing a mask is not cool there. See?
Yeah, and we can't get tetanus from them because they're not that sharp to begin with.
Oh, cool.
But
like stepping on like a rubber eraser.
But what I was gonna say is sorry, the car accident thing, you can be I'm a relatively healthy person. I will say getting hit by a car as a pedestrian did get me in the hospital. And and also you don't make the best decisions with a traumatic brain injury, a severe traumatic brain injury. So with everything going on, that would just would have been especially bad.
But I got to get to the bar. I got to get to the pub. I got to get me a pint and see my besties and go, "What's up?" And scream in their face and pretend to socially distance until we're too hammered to know what 2 meters is.
Well, hilariously, right? Pubs reopened here yesterday. Right.
I know.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry for you, Sophia. Like, Britain is trying so hard to out America, and
they're hold my beer right now.
Yeah, it's really bad.
hilariously, a chief constable of Hampshire, he did a patrol in Southampton, and he said it's impossible for drunk people to social distance. And I went, oh geez, shock horror. You know,
You
Yeah.
think?
yeah, you think?
I've been to London many times. I don't remember ever any situation where we're getting hammered at the pub where we understood what social distancing was. It just, no.
You know, Brits, we like to drink.
Yes, yes, you do. And your round system, I had to learn very quickly. I need to buy it the first
Yeah,
round.
yes,
And then I need to I don't drink beer. And so I was doing wine. So by the 6th round, I'd be on my 6th glass of wine. And I'm the stupid drunk American that's on the floor. And everybody's like, how's she going to navigate the tube? I don't know. It's like, give me a big old cider.
Did you learn that when it's your turn to buy a round, you don't go to the toilet?
You don't go to the toilet when you buy the round?
No, when it's your turn, yeah, you don't go to the toilet.
Wait.
Ah, why?
What?
You don't get that joke.
No,
I don't get that joke.
When it's your round, you don't go to the toilet. In other words, you don't Welsh out of buying a round.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, no.
I'm not aware of all the British slang against other aspects of Britain.
Yeah, you buy the first round before everybody else shows up, and then you're covered. That's what you do, because everybody buys a round.
No, Alex, I didn't say Welsh. I said Welch.
Welch, like WELCH.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like you don't like Bogart out of buying a round. You don't pretend to go to the bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to buy the round. I'm going to just go to the bathroom and pretend that I'm not going to buy everybody a drink, because everybody buys everybody a drink. And then I found out really quickly I needed to learn to drink cider, because having 6 glasses of wine was not.
Yeah, it seems like a bit much for one's health.
I can navigate the tube completely hammered though, so I'm fine.
That does not seem fine for your health.
Like, well, maybe not for your health, but I did figure out how to. The initial tube maps were extremely daunting at first, and then once you figure it out, just don't stay on the circle line forever. That's a bad idea.
Actually, the circle line. No. How long ago did you come here?
Huh?
The circle line doesn't go around the circle anymore.
It doesn't?
No, it doesn't go full circle anymore. No.
The last time I was there, I think it was 2017.
Yeah.
16, 17?
I haven't done a full circle for years.
Well, the circle, yeah, I remember, like, I still have an old tube map. I got to find it now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's all right. But yeah, I landed I think one of the trips I landed the day after the Brexit vote came out. I was like, oh my gosh, staying with my friends. That was a very, I gave a lot of.
Well, 2 days after the Brexit vote, it was Pride, and a lot of people were really down.
Yeah, I went to a friend of mine, Miles Jackson. He had a party at the pub in Frog and something, the Bullfrog pub or something that year. He had a party for Pride, and I went with my friend Lisa, and we hung out. And that was one of the first times I met Miles. Well, no, I met Miles before in Camden, but yeah, he had a party.
No one meets anybody in Camden.
I've met so many people. It's like I've met people, and they're like, "You've met people I've never met, and I live here." So I'm just like, "Hey Mel, you got to come to this party." I'm like, "Sweet, where is it?" "Over at my friend's house." "Okay." And then
you're right. Sorry, I'm just interrupting. You're right, Christy.
Do what?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm distracted. As that happens.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine.
I was going to ask Mel, what do you think of Richard Dawkins?
I am very torn. I've seen him give a talk at the National Portrait Gallery before, and he was talking about the influence of Darwin on him with evolution. I was with a friend of mine who went to King's College in Cambridge. He's a patent lawyer now. And so we were just hanging out, and he got us tickets to see Dawkins. I think there's a bit of some bigotedness there, and I'm trying to sort out what it is. I don't know if he's just
Okay, well, first of all, I was going to ask you. I'll talk about his bigotedness in a minute, but
I've met Dawkins, you know.
have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, Mel. Well, what do you think about him snubbing creationist science? He refuses to talk to anybody who propagates that bullshit.
well, the thing that I usually do when I'm thinking about that is, what is your goal when you're engaging with creationists? I don't think creationists have science per se, but I have friends of mine who have PhDs in science who are creationists, but they accept evolution. That's how it happened. They can be like, well, this is how God did it, evolution. And that's how they sort that. So I think if you're wanting it, you have to figure out what your goal is. So I engage with people of all backgrounds because my goal is to educate and make certain they understand what the terms are. I'm not going to fight with people. They can either believe it or not. That's on them. That's not what my goal is. So
I kind of like your stuff, but basically you're doing what the Brits would say, setting out your stall, and you take it or leave it. You know, I think that's actually a good way of doing it.
I mean, it's worked for me with my science education background and stuff. So.
Well, I mean, I think there's obviously a lot of ways that minds can be changed and all that.
I was going to say that as for Dawkins' bigotry, I'll tell you something that happened here. So a bunch of far-right wankers decided that it would be funny to leave bacon in the door handle of a mosque, which is obvious racism, right?
Yeah, that is.
Because Dawkins thought this was just being anti-religious. It's not, right? And the thing is, I understand his criticism of religion, and I agree with his criticisms of religion. But the trouble is that his stuff is. I'll give you an example here. For instance, there's a guy called Tommy Robinson who's a
I'm familiar
far right thug, right? And he's taken a particular interest in grooming gangs. But the only grooming gangs he seems to pay any interest to are those who are supposedly Muslim. I mean, you know, I've had a tweet which went viral yesterday when I pointed out, well, if he's so interested in child grooming, why isn't he investigating, you know, Prince Andrew?
Yeah.
You know.
God, with Jeffrey Epstein.
You know, and that's the problem with Richard Dawkins. A lot of his rhetoric has now been borrowed by the far right.
Yeah.
Well,
his eugenics tweet, that was just, I'm like, oh, dude, you're not wrong, but still, read the room, man. Read the room. This is not the time to do that.
I mean, eugenics has a lot of problems because it assumes what the what the future will entail, and society determines what is good, what is able, what makes you able-bodied. Society determines all that, and
it's just the core foundation is artificial selection, which is what we do in crops and cattle. So if you go through and you apply it to humans, it's a big problem. And he did say we shouldn't apply this to humans, but I'm like, dude, you just said eugenics was all right. So it's like you kind of need to not just sit down, professor, be quiet for a bit, shush.
To run around back to J.K. Rowling, which I think one of the things
we're on eugenics.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why that hit so hard is because her moment was just so fucking awful. I mean, I can ignore turf bullshit, but it's like, oh, nobody's paying attention to me right now, so I'm going to say something awful, so everybody will be talking about me instead of the shit we're going through right now.
That's the theory I've got about Emma Nicholson, because she hadn't been she hadn't been known for years, and then she pops up with all this transphobic bullshit. It was like, Oh, she wants some attention, does she?
I hadn't thought of that. Perhaps J.K.
Yeah.
Rowling's is gearing up for a presidential bid.
Oh God!
Well,
they
yeah,
were
she's-
they were reading her turf paper on the Senate floor
Oh,
in
Yes.
God. Yeah, I heard
Congress.
that.
Yeah.
And it's like that was their justification. And I'm sitting here going, this is a woman who writes about like pretend lands. And, it's ironic that she would write a book about an oppressive system. But at the same time, she's really good at the oppression thing. So maybe that's why she's great about writing about it.
Yeah, but I
One of the,
but I point out that libertarians have done it. Ayn Rand, she was decrying that rich people were oppressed, wasn't she? And whatever else. Yeah, have you heard her? She was an absolute racist. Just hear what she had to say about the Native Americans.
Well, yeah. One of the things, considering my actual job, my for real job, the thing that pays me money, because I'm in the science fiction, fantasy, and horror field, and that's where I make my money, and it's a nice job if you can get it. I just said at one point, it bothered me most that she's in my field. It sounds a little like selfish, but and yet
It is, but I understand.
If you want to see the effect of what J.K. Rowling has done, go and look at.
I can finish my sentence some other time.
Sorry. No, all right. Sorry.
And I won't name her because that would be bad, but probably the most respected editor in my field kind of talked me down from that. Not talked me down as in I was wrong, talked me down as in, yeah, this is what I've been feeling all day, and I didn't know anybody else was feeling this kind of thing. Because a lot of us, especially in that field, are kind of like going, oh no, come on, you did so much for us, and that's it's been on my mind for a while. It's like fantasy authors aren't respected necessarily anyway, and she brought respect to us, and now she's throwing it all away for all of us. So J.R.R. Martin, Martin.
JK.
No, Martin, the
Game of Thrones guy.
Game of Thrones guy.
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin.
George R.R. Martin. God, I've known him since '86, and I couldn't remember his name. I'm sorry, George. At least one of the things that happened, especially in my group on Twitter, because I'm in trans Twitter, but I'm also in writer Twitter. Is all the people in the science fiction and fantasy coming out and saying, no, this does not speak for us, except Richard or Morgan, the guy who wrote Altered Carbon, which fuck him.
Well, that's weird. That is the weirdest thing, because Richard Altered Carbon, you would think would be one of the the most support. If you read it, it is the ultimate sort of pro-trans book.
Yeah.
I mean, changing skins and everything.
Yeah. And he's come out in support of J.K. Rowling, and it's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Well, at least one of my friends did something very subtle right after that, and now it's on their actual log line, the tagline. Just came out when that happened to as non-binary by just changing the pronouns in their bio, and it's kind of like, okay, that was about as subtle as you get, because who looks there, but.
All right. First of all, I'm sorry to have interrupted you, Christy.
That's okay.
I was about to say though, if you want to see the effect of what J.K. Rowling has been blabbing, there's a Council of Geeks video where they're near enough in tears. because this was a person who was a huge Harry Potter fan. Yeah, it really broke their heart.
Yeah, that's the one I pointed out to you. Remember, it was like she cancels on you, and I said, look, if you see her video from day, she's crying. They're crying. Well, that day, she was crying.
Yeah,
that's pretty upsetting. You know, as many times as I've taken that freaking Pottermore quiz, I'm always House Slytherin. Every single, I'm like, fine, you know what, I'm gonna own that because I'm the potions master and Lady Snape, whatever, that's fine. I can handle that. But my god, JK Rowling, do better. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous, and she has no basis whatsoever outside of her own projection of her own trauma on everything and everyone. And she's like, I'm on antidepressants. Well, you know, honey, you're not really sorting your stuff so great. You need to work a bit harder.
I was gonna say, Rowling's not the only anti-LGBT science fiction writer. I mean, there's the author of Ender's Game.
Orson Scott Card is how this is how I'm relating to the J.K. Rowling stuff, is how devastated I was when Orson Scott Card pulled his shit. And for just for kicks, I actually went to the Orson Scott Card Hat Rack River, which is his website. I shouldn't have promoted that, but to see what he had to say about this. And his blog is now behind a paywall, and I'm okay with that. He can be as bigoted as he wants behind his own fucking paywall. I don't have to deal with it.
Fair enough. You know, I find it interesting when particularly because even though I'm like heavy science communication, people in science education, all that, people seem to think that I'm not allowed to have like political views or societal views. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. Politics and society drive where the direction of research goes. Yeah. That's where the funding is. That's where the interest is. And then, and I'm also a geek person. I don't know if you noticed my background. But it's like when they start talking about, well, when did Star Trek get all political? I'm like, where have you been in the history of Star Trek? Or, you know, it's one of my, and I love music. It's like Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. Somebody's like, I liked Rage Against the Machine till they got political. And he's like, dude, what songs are not political so I can remove them from my catalog? You know, it's like, did you even listen? I got to see Rage Against the Machine open for U2 once, which I thought was weird.
Which machine do you think they were raging against? Yeah,
like the dishwasher. The dishwasher in my kitchen. They're screaming, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Yeah. I'm not going to put the rinsing aid in here. What does it, you know? So it's like they seem to think that Star Trek in pop culture and all of this stuff never had any political leanings or societal leanings. And then you look at the history, like with Gene Roddenberry, the first interracial kiss. I mean, and you know, come on, Captain Kirk, he didn't care what color you were. You could be green. And he's like, I'm going to hit that. It's like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. But, you know, people seem to think, oh, it was never political. Yes, it was. When he was making out with Uhura, man, you can bet that they got lots of calls at the studio. So it's just, there's lots of undertones, a part of, you know, with sci-fi in the fictional world, where there was a lot of progression and a lot of progressive movements. But, you know, so as many
I was going to say
on the other side, but Star Trek was all right.
Interesting video to watch. There's a guy called Renegade Cuts on YouTube. Does make very good videos, I have to say. A lot of film analysis, you know, looking at the social political stuff. And he made a very good video about when Rick Berryman took over from Gene Roddenberry on The Next Generation, and how he toned down the political stuff, because Roddenberry had actually wanted to have a gay character in The Next Generation. He was actually quite forward thinking. Mm. I mean, there were episodes in The Next Generation, like there was that episode with the race of aliens who were hermaphrodites. And
Yeah, and Jonathan Frakes insisted that they cast a guy in the role, and Berman balked on that. And
also,
There was
if you notice the very early episodes of The Next Generation, men were allowed to wear skirts.
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. There
Well,
was
also they had that entire episode where gender roles were switched on a particular planet, where the men were at home putting on makeup, looking all pretty, while the ladies went out and hunted and did all of the things, and they expected the men to make them dinner. And I was like, "This is great." It's like, can I just have that? I'm just gonna have the dudes make my dinner for me, and then we'll come home and be all savage. Like, what's up? I've gone and killed a thing for you to put in the oven for me, honey. It's like,
there's a very, I don't know if you knew this, but there was a web only thing called Star Trek Continues, and it was
haven't heard of that.
well, yeah, it was basically Star Trek continuing from the original series, right?
Oh, okay.
And it was about 8 episodes, right?
Mm.
a lot more than that. But
Someone told me they only made 8 episodes. I did see a few. One of them was about how on this planet, they only could see in black and white, and there was some sort of problem with another planet, and that they were scared about infiltration from this other planet. And you could only tell that these aliens were different by the color of their skin. Of course, they saw everyone as black and white, so they didn't know.
Mm.
And like the most racist of racist, the leader, right? He didn't realize that his wife was one of those aliens. Right? It's a very good commentary on racism. It's got that guy who played Q.
Oh yeah, I know you're
Um,
talking about. I forgot his name.
John Delancey.
I
That's it.
saw him at a con and he gave a talk. I was with a family member and they knew John Delancey from My Little Pony.
Oh,
As one does.
did he do a voice? Did he do the voice?
He does a voice for one of the characters
Yes, he
in
does.
the new My Little
Oh, my.
Pony
Also,
series.
what people don't know is that the guy who played the Doctor in Voyager, what's his name?
Yes.
He's actually I'm not into opera, but I do respect the fact that it's a very hard art form. He's an
Yeah.
accomplished opera singer. So
Wow, that's awesome.
when he was doing all that stuff in Star Trek The Voyager, he was actually doing it. He wasn't miming, he was doing it himself.
Ah.
Richard yeah. Sorry.
I just remember him from the Wonder Years. That's shows my age.
Oh, that takes me back. That was a great series.
Oh, speaking of being old, have you guys seen that a bunch of isolated actors have redone The Princess Bride in like their backyards and
Nice.
pieced it together? And it's
sounds
like
awesome.
it's like Hugh Jackman did some stuff, I think. It's just a whole bunch of different actors filmed in like their backyards, them doing different scenes from The Princess Bride, and they've made it an entire film, and all the proceeds go to charity. So like, this is amazing. I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to. Like, I
still think Rob Reiner's best film was Spinal Tap. Sorry.
Spinal Tap's great.
No, it was North.
Oh, you would, wouldn't you? The thing, she will always defend the indefensible. She'll defend. she literally will defend Can't Stop the Music.
I loved Can't Stop the Music. I'm sorry, I do. And there's political stuff reasons, but
Yeah.
And I noticed how they whitewashed everything, including Jenner being out at the time.
But if you think that's bad, there's this one of the worst pieces of television was this Doctor Who thing they did for Children in Need in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely terrible. Doctor Who, Doctor Who Whovians like me.
Doctor Who meets EastEnders.
Yeah,
yes.
Whovians like me absolutely hate it, right?
I'm still salty.
But guess who will defend it?
I will absolutely defend it. I loved it.
I went to Comic Con in 2011 and in San Diego, and I got in front of the Doctor Who panel. I had sat in a line from 2 a.m. just to get in to Hall H, and they finally get the panel. And I'm still salty, guys. I'm not okay. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not okay. Because I stood there in front of Matt Smith, in front of Karen Gillian, and like Rory, all of them, and the writers. I think Stephen Moffat was there. And I'm standing there, and my name is Melody. And so technically it's like my name is River Song. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm like talking, and I walk up, and I waited in line forever. And I wanted to ask Matt Smith. This was the question I wanted to ask, and they wouldn't let me ask it. I had been there from 2 a.m, and they didn't have the panel until noon. 10 hours in line, guys.
And you couldn't ask your question.
And I couldn't ask my question. And so they came up to me, and they're like, we don't want you to ask this question. Too many people are asking Matt Smith a question. You need to ask the writers a question. I'm like these poor people are going to get their feelings hurt if I don't ask them a question at a con. They got all this money. They don't care what I think. I'm like, well, we'll just pull somebody from behind you. They threatened to skip me if I didn't ask a question that they decided that was a good question. And so I asked them, me being a science person, I'm like, okay, do they have like a science person on set to help them with the science of Doctor Who? You know, Battlestar Galactica did. Had a PhD physicist on there, talk about the science and stuff. Went to that particular talk. I get to the front. I asked this question, and the frickin' writers and directors made fun of me. Oh, we have the science of sexy vampires. Guess what happens like 2 months later? My favorite physicist on the BBC does the science of Doctor Who, Professor Brian Cox. I swear to God, I wanted to punch my TV. And I'm like, you bitches made fun of me in front of everybody in Hall H on YouTube. It's there forever. And you took my idea and you made a show about it with my favorite physicist from Manchester U.
Well, I mean, we're all sexy here, but Brian Cox is next level.
I mean, but they made fun of me. They made fun of me in front of everybody. Oh, the science of sexy vampires. Yeah, we don't do that. You're so funny.
But it's so important. The science of sexy vampires is so important.
Do you know what Brian Cox did before he was a physicist?
He was a musician in an 80s band.
Yeah, he started off in a hair metal band.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was in a hair metal band. I'm still mad I don't think I'll ever get over that. And that was 9 years ago, guys. 9 years ago this month, actually.
No, I don't blame you.
I'm still mad.
So I went to Comic-Con last year, right? Christy's seen the video, right?
Yes.
And my fiance, right? I saw a TARDIS and I walked up to it and I hugged it. And she went, "Why are you hugging the Doctor Who box?"
Have you been to Earl's Court? With the TARDIS there at the Earl's Court station.
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
You can find it on Google Maps, by the way. Y'all guys at home, look up Earl's Court.
Well, no, the fact that she referred to the TARDIS as the Doctor Who box.
Yeah.
Knows what a heathen she is.
But do you have a sonic screwdriver?
No.
I do.
You really are a Hoovian, aren't you?
I have a river song over here. This river song's right here. 10 is right here.
Something from earlier that I wanted to get out was that it's part of our educational process, and I think it's an intentional part of our educational process. We teach you things, and then later we teach you that those things were wrong. And as we get more and more detailed, you learn that things that you were taught were absolutely wrong all the way through. I don't see why people are surprised when they're being taught, when they're finding out that actually, if you want to deal with, biology, sex and is not a boy girl thing, that it's like blood typing. You were taught this is how you do blood typing. Yeah, that's not really how blood typing's a lot more complicated than that. Okay. But that was what you were taught, and everybody had fun with that. You remember? Okay. But
Oh, yeah.
now let's talk seriously about blood typing. Well, you're taught one thing, and then you're taught that was wrong all the time. Well, you were taught it was boy girl, and it's not. It was wrong.
It's like you've got like the middle school version of science, and then you've got the high school version of science, then you've got the college version of science. Me lecturing in chemistry, and I'm sitting there and I'm like talking, I'm like, well, this is how it is for you guys. But if you take this class over here, then it'll be all of this stuff that doesn't fit into your box in this one. So.
It's not just science or anything. It's history. Everything does that. Everything does that. All courses do that.
But Perfect, there was
even I will tell you something about theology. In the Bible, the Tanakh particularly, and the writings on, I can't remember what it's called offhand. Oh, damn it! The gloss is on. There are 7 different genders mentioned in the original Hebrew.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, there are.
Including 3 of them for God. So,
I was just going to say to Perfect, did you ever watch Sesame Street?
Oh yeah.
There was a character in Sesame Street that the kids would like say about something like a mirror. They would use their imagination about what it was, right? But then there would be this character who would actually explain the science to them of what it was. I can't forget the name of the character.
Is it Snuffleupagus?
Something like that, yeah.
Yep.
Snuffleupagus, they always thought was imaginary, and Big Bird's like, no, he's totally real. And nobody believed him.
Now, Mel, I know you're not an epidologist, but to settle the mask argument once and for all,
the masks?
The mask argument. Do masks do some good with
Yes,
COVID?
they do. So we don't have N95s, and that's okay. The idea is the more layers you have, the less likely you are to pick up anything. But the idea is to not transmit something that you're carrying. So if everybody were to wear a mask, if they were to sneeze, it would be contained within their fabric, and then you could just throw it in the washer. So everybody
has theirs handy, right?
Oh, I like double up and do multiple things. So I have like this one that I wear like this one, and I put it on, and then I'll put like this thing over on top of it. So I'll have a little cloth thing here underneath my little gator thing that I've got. And you can get these. And so this will go across the front, and it would be like this, and it goes all the way across my neck. But
I've got a fancy knitted one that my mom knitted.
That's me. Nice.
Mine's in the laundry at the moment.
And I washed this recently too, and because we don't have a lot of filters, coffee filters.
Well, I mean, people
it's
are
better
like,
than no filters.
Well, you could go either way. I mean, the filters, all those are going to do is get like larger, I don't know if it won't really stop the virus per se, but but honestly, the more layers you have, the less likely you are to pick it up.
Yeah. When I go out, I wear a mask, and I also wear a pair of washing up gloves. Right.
Mm-hmm. Do you take them off after you leave, like an area?
Well, I take them off when I get home.
Well, here's the thing. So I don't wear gloves when I go out, unless I have multiple gloves. So when I go into a building, if I'm wearing gloves and I'm touching things and I'm grabbing, if like I'm going to the shop and I'm grabbing things and I'm putting them in my basket. Yeah, this is not like a very sexy way to think about it. I just pretend everything is covered in poo. Okay. Yeah. Everything is covered in poo. Even if it's not really, I pretend that it is. So when I touch it, I have poo on my hands. So the next thing I touch, I'm putting poo on it. I'm putting poo on the next thing. So this is kind of where a little bit of my decontamination training kind of kicks in. So when I go to the grocery store, I actually do the pickup service, and they just put my stuff. I have a truck, and they just put it in my truck. I drive it to my house, and then I take the things and I put it on one side of my table where I consider the dirty side, the poo covered side, and then I got the clean side. And then I go through and I like wipe off everything with my disinfectant spray. And once it's clean, I put it on the clean side. But when you have on gloves and you're touching all the dirty things, everything you touch, you contaminate. So
Yeah.
it's like, that's the only downside. So I keep hand sanitizer in my car because I have a post office box. I don't have a regular mailbox. So I have to go to the post office. And so I have to like open my box. And so when I bring in my stuff, I'm like, okay, I've touched the things with my bare hands that are covered in poo. I just assume that it is. And then I set it down, and then I clean off my hands, clean off my steering wheel, I clean off my keys, and then I drive home. And
Yeah,
then I
you do
everything.
more than I do, despite the fact that I know at some point I know there was a point where I did wear gloves. The thing is, because of that, I know I can't really use gloves unless I have a way to toss them away right away.
Yeah. So
because of that.
Yeah, if I was like in the grocery store, the moment I left the grocery store, I'd throw my gloves away, and then I'd put on a new pair, go to the post office, throw them as soon as I left the post office.
That's what I did once for picking up medication, where I was just like, wear gloves, toss them, and then because they had a trash bag right there. So after pressing in the numbers, I was just like, okay, toss that, and then put a new pair of gloves, and then grab the.
I mean, you can use your keys to press the numbers because it's not really going to live so much on.
That's a good idea, actually.
I've heard about the cross contamination argument, but I just care about protecting myself.
Right. Well,
and as far as I'm concerned, your hands, people's hands can be dirty, and they can, touch stuff in a supermarket.
That's true. You have to assume everything's contaminated. But the other thing is if you touch everything and you don't take your gloves off the moment you leave the store, and if you touch anything that's like your keys or your wallet,
the thing is, even if I have but even if I have the bag, I'd be contaminating the bag.
That's true.
See, I think about that stuff too. This is why I every time there's a walk sign, I don't touch that with my hands. I press that with my elbow.
I mean, you can't really rub your face with your elbow either.
Yeah, anything that decreases amount of contamination, because I'm not going to be able to do anything. Nothing is going to be as clean as full protective gear in a clean room.
Right.
Nothing's going to be anywhere near that, and because of that, everything's not going to be enough. That being said, we are getting close to time. So,
just for a piece of explanation, because of the remnants of the stroke, I sometimes light really bothers me. So one of the reasons I haven't been looking at the screen is because the light is too much.
It's overwhelming at times. That's okay.
Yeah. I didn't mean to be rude, and I did engage.
Yeah, no. I didn't consider what people consider rude is a bit exceptionally harsh. We were more concerned about you.
Yeah,
I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Could I have just one moment to masks? That masks don't keep you from getting it. They keep you from when you breathe out. If you got it because some other inconsiderate person wasn't wearing a mask and was breathing out basically a cloud of virus, you now have the potential. You are now manufacturing new viruses in your lungs, and you are now breathing them out into the air, and the mask captures them. it captures
Yes.
like 89% or even more of them.
Right.
Even though it
But
doesn't fit as, but that's what it does mostly.
yes,
Is it keeps you from infecting other people.
that's correct. But there is some science to suggest the more layers you have, like, and it depends on the type of material, the more
Yeah.
tightly wound and the more tightly knit that it is, you reduce your risk with more layers and more tightly spun type of materials.
Yes.
You
And it
don't
does reduce the,
eliminate it. You don't
yeah.
eliminate it.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
But anyways, like I was saying, we're getting close to the end now. I figured we have it mention what we're doing, where you can find us. Perfect. Are you, just to be quick, you still
Yep.
on in the Rumpus Room and here and
Rumpus Room and here. Those are my 2 gigs.
Yeah, Rumpus Room is a Discord server.
Discord
just to be
server,
clear.
yes.
Christy, how about you? Let's try to be quick. I'm not desperate for the fact that I'm dealing with raid soon. Anyways, go on.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm Normality Quake on Twitter. Christy Abbey on Facebook. My channel is active, but I am not entirely sure how the restructuring is going. I still have the interviews on Wednesdays. They're still going up. At least I have a couple in the can. And other than that, I'll talk about the other stuff when it comes up.
Yeah, I feel you. Sophia, about that. You're sorry if we don't promote you directly, just because last minute stuff is much more frustrating to do, and I'm tired of it. That being said,
my fault,
you
and
have
I'm
a channel. Well, even just some degree. That was me not hearing. Whatever. It's all a mess. Sophia, where can people find you?
On Twitter at SophiaBotha74.
Okay. And are you working on anything?
Possibly with Christy. We'll need to talk about it after the show.
Okay. I am streaming Raid after this. It's not gonna be on YouTube, it's just gonna be on my Twitch. I'm trying to sort my life out, and there's lots of other stuff. And you can find me at Ozma in the Dark everywhere. I have my links at ozmainthedark.com. It has links to my YouTube and Twitter and all that. I'm talking to nothing on Twitter, but like nothing. Sorry, not nothing. Anyways, whatever. That's how you can find me. Scientist Mel, where can people find you? What are you up to?
Just Google Scientist Mel. I have a website, scientistmel.com. I write articles. I have resources for teachers. I also have a shop. I'm Scientist Mel on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel, Twitch, DLive, Facebook. It's all the same. Usually every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Central, I stream and we talk about the latest in science news. And sometimes we hone in on a particular topic. We've talked about vaccines. We talked about autoimmune disease. I have like probably 200 videos on my channel. So it's busy. It's okay.
Yeah. So it's been a wonderful time. We had a great conversation. Bye everyone.
Thanks
Temporarily
for
bye at the very least if you're on Twitch, because I will immediately pop back on to Twitch once I sort out the stream stuff really quickly because of Rita and I. Anyways, bye.
Peace.
Bye. Live long and prosper.
Wait.
Hold on, I can do that better.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll just do that. All right. No.